You won't believe what this sweet old lady did to her family on their dream cruise. Stay tuned to find out how one phone call turned their luxury vacation into a nightmare. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this, and if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. My name is Eleanor Vance, and at 73, my ambitions had narrowed, becoming more focused, yet no less significant. After losing my beloved husband, Richard, 8 years ago, the grand expeditions we'd meticulously planned for our golden years, a trek through the Amazon, a slow journey across the Trans-Siberian Railway, felt too vast, too desolate to undertake alone. But one desire persisted, a stubborn ember in my heart, a magnificent family cruise. Not just for me, but for my son, Michael, his wife, Tiffany, and my 2 cherished teenage grandchildren, Madison and Noah. I pictured us all gathered on the grand deck of a majestic vessel, the balmy Caribbean sun gracing our faces, the oceanic breeze a balm for our spirits. It would be a final, glorious family chronicle, a testament to the affection and heritage Richard and I had painstakingly built, a memory that would sustain me for the remainder of my days. My 46-year-old son, Michael, was, I genuinely believed, a good soul at heart, but one easily swayed by the formidable currents of his ambitious spouse, Tiffany. Tiffany, 43, was a woman whose existence revolved around the meticulously curated facade of social media, obsessed with projecting an image of effortless sophistication and triumph that their true financial state, I suspected, could not genuinely support. They owned an exquisite residence in a perfectly manicured suburb, yet I gleaned from Michael's occasional vague laments about cash flow and market pressures that they were perpetually overextended, living precisely at the brink of their substantial earnings. Still, I clung to my fantasy, nurturing it with the same devotion I gave my prize-winning orchids. During their increasingly sporadic Sunday visits, I would produce the glossy cruise pamphlets, their pages adorned with images of sapphire waters and joyous families. Wouldn't it be absolutely marvelous? I'd inquire, my voice brimming with genuine expectation. The 9-day island hopper. We could all embark, my treat, a legacy voyage from Richard and me. I've diligently saved for it. The notion of my treat invariably ignited a brief spark in Michael's eyes, a fleeting glimpse of the eager boy I remembered. "That would be utterly fantastic, Mom," he would exclaim. Tiffany, however, would offer a tight, condescending smirk, her gaze swiftly, dismissively sweeping across my comfortable yet unpretentious living room. "A cruise is a charming concept, Eleanor," she would remark, her tone a masterclass in polite disdain. "But the right cruise, with the appropriate amenities, the executive suites, the private excursions, it can be dreadfully costly. The vessel's pedigree matters, you know. We certainly wouldn't want to do it half-heartedly. It's all about the photographic documentation." It was amidst one of these exchanges that the instrument of my impending undoing was subtly honed and then entrusted to them. Years ago, following Richard's passing, I had, upon my bank's advisement, added Michael as an authorized user to my primary credit card. It was an aged account, one I'd maintained for over 4 decades, boasting an impeccable payment history, an exceedingly generous credit limit, and an outstanding rewards program. For emergencies only, Michael, I had emphatically cautioned him then, if I should suffer a fall or require something urgently and cannot access the bank. He had readily concurred, the card discreetly tucked into his wallet, and for years it remained unused, a silent emblem of my trust in him. "Mom," he proposed that very afternoon, a new, cunning notion dawning in his eyes, an idea I could almost sense being telepathically transmitted from his wife, Tiffany, who sat beside him. "You know what would be exceedingly shrewd? If we secure the cruise using your card. The rewards points are truly exceptional. We can charge the entire sum, secure the generous cashback bonus, and then I can simply reimburse you in manageable installments from my year-end bonus. It's simply a more intelligent approach to managing the cash flow." I harbored reservations. It was a substantial sum to place on a credit card, a practice my generation was firmly taught to eschew. Yet, he was so persuasive, so brimming with confident discourse about optimizing value and financial strategies. It was the lexicon of his world, and I, a retired librarian, felt a tad out of my depth, a touch antiquated. I trusted him. He was my son, a successful man. And so, foolishly, I agreed. "All right, darling," I assented, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. "As long as it's for the cruise, for all of us." That agreement irretrievably sealed my destiny. The weeks that ensued were a grand display of subtle manipulation and outright dismissal. My eager inquiries about booking dates were met with ambiguous evasions. "Still searching for the perfect itinerary, Mom," Michael would assert. "Tiffany insists the excursions are top-notch and, more importantly, Instagrammable." One afternoon I telephoned, bubbling with enthusiasm, having stumbled upon a special offer for seniors on the very cruise line we had discussed. Tiffany answered the receiver. "Oh, Eleanor," she sighed wearily, "we're just utterly swamped. And, honestly, I've been reviewing the activities, all that ziplining and snorkeling. We were concerned it might be too demanding for you. You wouldn't wish to merely remain confined to the vessel all day while we're out embarking on thrilling adventures, would you?" The insinuation was unmistakable. I was too elderly, a liability. I would impede their enjoyment. I was so ensnared in the exquisite illusion of the family expedition they were crafting that I failed to perceive the rotten threads woven throughout it. I didn't notice the abrupt terminations of hushed phone calls from Tiffany when I entered the room, or the furtive, triumphant glances she exchanged with Michael. Their silence on the subject of the cruise grew longer, and I, in my quiet solitude, mistook it for the busy hum of their lives, not the chilling quietude of a plot being meticulously hatched behind my back. The final, crushing blow to my hope arrived on a Sunday afternoon, one of the rare occasions they deigned to visit. I had prepared my celebrated blackberry cobbler, Michael's favorite, but he barely sampled it. "About the cruise, Mom," Michael began, his gaze avoiding mine, fixed instead on Tiffany, who offered him a small, almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. "We've analyzed the figures, and with the children's academic expenses and the current market instability, it's simply not an opportune moment. The prices for that particular cruise line are truly astronomical right now. We're going to have to postpone. Perhaps next year." It was a falsehood, a transparent, flimsy pretext, and we all recognized it. But it was Tiffany's subsequent delivery that truly twisted the blade. She extended her arm across the table and patted my hand with her cool, impeccably manicured fingers. "Honestly, Eleanor," she pronounced, her voice dripping with a false, cloying solicitude, "it's a blessing in disguise. A major cruise like that, it's a lot. All that walking, the varying time zones, the heat. We were so apprehensive it might be too much for you. You'd probably be far more comfortable enjoying a quiet staycation at home. We simply desire what's best for you." The words, so patronizing, so dismissive of my vitality, my spirit, my aspirations, hung suspended in the air between us. They weren't merely postponing the trip, they were gracefully editing me out of the narrative of my own dream. I was too old. I was a burden. I would slow them down. I saw the truth then, in Michael's averted gaze, in Tiffany's smug, pitying smile. They harbored no intention of including me, not now, not ever. I neatly stored the brochures away that evening, my heart burdened with a familiar despondency. I was the elderly matriarch, the one to be managed, to be dictated to regarding what was best for her. I accepted it, as I had accepted so many of their minor, subtle slights, with a quiet, mournful resignation. I had no desire to instigate a quarrel. I simply yearned for my son's affection, and if that necessitated relinquishing a frivolous dream, then so be it. I dispatched a text message to him that night. "I comprehend about the cruise, honey. Don't fret over me. Just wish to inform you that the emergency credit card remains in your wallet, just in case anything ever transpires. Love, Mom." It was my subtle declaration. Even though you've wounded me, I still love you, I still trust you. It was a foolish, maternal act of faith I would come to bitterly lament. I resigned myself to a tranquil, solitary winter. Michael and Tiffany were, as they had prophesied, insanely preoccupied. Their visits all but ceased, replaced by hurried phone calls filled with their own domestic dramas. I did not press. I tended my garden. I met my dear friends for tea. I endeavored to fill the vacant spaces in my days. I presumed they were at home, merely 40 minutes away, engrossed in their own world, conserving funds, planning for their future. I had no inkling they were already in paradise. They had lied, of course. The cruise was not postponed. They had booked it weeks prior, the very day after Michael had convinced me to permit him to use my credit card for its fantastic rewards points. But they had booked for 4, not 5. Michael, Tiffany, and my 2 precious grandchildren, Madison and Noah. Not me. I envisioned them meticulously packing their luggage, the vibrant summer attire, the sunscreen. Had Michael experienced a single pang of guilt as he confirmed the booking on my card, knowing he was deliberately excluding the very person whose financial security was funding their lavish escape? Had Tiffany smirked as she selected her evening ensembles, knowing the woman she had deemed too old to travel was footing the bill for her lobster thermidor? The deception was absolute, the hypocrisy breathtaking. They had exploited my dream, my generosity, my unwavering trust as the raw materials for their own selfish, exclusive indulgence. They were so utterly confident in my naivete, so certain of my technological ineptitude, that they truly believed their betrayal would remain my secret, a quiet, unacknowledged sorrow. They believed they had left me behind, a forgotten, elderly woman in a silent house, her dream reduced to dust. They had no idea that, in their towering arrogance, they had left me with something else entirely, a high-limit credit card, a robust Wi-Fi connection, and a direct, real-time conduit into their carefully constructed web of deceit. The stage for my retribution was meticulously set, not in a courtroom or a living room, but on the vast, unforgiving expanse of the open sea. For the initial few days of my family's non-existent cruise, I dwelled in a state of blissful ignorance. Their silence was not atypical. I had long grown accustomed to their busy lives taking precedence. I assumed they were at home, merely 40 minutes away, immersed in work and academic endeavors. I spent my days engrossed in books, tending to my prize-winning orchids, and conversing with Richard's photograph, recounting how much I missed him, how quiet the house had become. The loneliness was a constant, dull ache, yet it was a familiar one. The shattering revelation came on a Wednesday, 5 days after they would have departed. It commenced with a simple text message from my granddaughter, Madison. A photograph materialized on my phone screen, a breathtaking turquoise ocean, a sliver of a pristine white sand beach, and in the corner, Madison's own sun-kissed, radiant face. The accompanying text read, "Hi, Grandma. Wish you were here. The Caribbean is so breathtakingly beautiful. The water is warmer than a bathtub. Love you." Red heart, I stared at the photo, my heart executing a strange, bewildered somersault. The Caribbean? I must have misunderstood. Perhaps it was an old photograph she was transmitting, a nostalgic memory from a past excursion. I typed back, my fingers slow and hesitant, "That looks lovely, sweetheart." An old picture. Her reply arrived almost instantaneously. "No, silly. It's from right now. We're on the big ship. Dad said you couldn't make it, that you were feeling under the weather. Hope you feel better soon. XOXO. The big ship. Dad said you couldn't make it." The words swam before my eyes. A cold, sickening dread began to crawl up my spine, a sensation so intense it caused my hands to tremble. It couldn't be. Michael wouldn't. He couldn't have. With a fumbling haste that was utterly alien to my usual composure, I retrieved my tablet from the living room. My hands shook so violently it required 3 attempts to accurately type in the password. I opened my web browser, my mind a chaotic maelstrom of disbelief and dawning horror. I navigated to the website for my credit card company, the one Michael was an authorized user on, the one he was supposedly only to use for emergencies. I logged in, my heart pounding audibly in my ears. I clicked on Recent Transactions, and there it was, the world tilted precariously on its axis. The screen was inundated with charges, a long, damning inventory of my son's profound betrayal. The first charge, from 6 weeks prior, was the most substantial, a 5-figure sum that made me gasp. The merchant, Royal Caribbean Cruises. The description, 7-night Eastern Caribbean voyage. 4 passengers. Not 5. My name, my dream, neatly, surgically excised. Then came the more recent charges, the ones from the past few days, as they were living their lie at sea. On-board purchases, casino and bar tabs, port excursions, St. Thomas Island Jewelers, Phillipsburg Aqua Adventure Park. They were squandering my money, my painstakingly accrued savings, my impeccable credit, with a reckless, joyful abandon, all while I sat at home, implicitly believing their lies, respecting their supposed need to postpone. I scrolled through the transactions, each one a fresh stab to the heart. A charge for a couple's massage, a purchase at a high-end designer boutique on the ship, yet another exorbitant bar tab. They weren't merely on vacation without me, they were reveling in a life of sheer luxury at my expense, funding their pleasure with my trust. The humiliation was a physical entity, a searing wave that engulfed me, leaving me feeling nauseous and disoriented. I recalled Tiffany's condescending smirk as she had asserted a cruise would be too much for me. I recalled Michael's earnest, deceitful countenance as he had spoken of postponing due to financial reasons. They had exploited me for a fool, an antiquated woman whose dreams could be harvested, whose resources could be plundered, and who could then be safely discarded while they sailed off into the sunset. The sorrow, the profound, shattering grief of their betrayal, was immense. But then, something else began to rise through it. Something cold, sharp, and utterly crystalline. It was the quiet, steely indignation of a woman who has been profoundly, unforgivably wronged. They believed I was too old, too simple, too technologically inept to unravel their cunning scheme. They had used my own financial security as the weapon to exclude and humiliate me. A slow, dangerous smile touched my lips, a smile my students used to recognize when a classroom bully was about to be firmly put in their place. They had committed one critical, arrogant blunder. They had left me on shore with the tablet, with the password to my own account, with the customer service number for the credit card company printed right there on the back of my card. They were trapped on a floating palace in the middle of the ocean, their entire lavish experience inextricably linked to a single, fragile thread of credit, my credit. And I, Eleanor Vance, the too-old-to-travel grandmother, was about to sever that thread. For the remainder of that afternoon, I was a woman possessed by a chilling, methodical serenity. The initial tempest of heartbreak, the wild, chaotic grief stemming from my son's and his wife's profound betrayal, had subsided, leaving in its wake the cold, stark landscape of pure, unadulterated resolve. The tears were spent, the time for sorrow was over. The time for strategy had begun. I did not act immediately, that was not my modus operandi. My anger was not a sudden downpour, but a slow, inexorable rising tide, powerful and relentless. I retrieved my old ledger book, and with a remarkably steady hand, I meticulously documented everything. I recorded the precise date and time of Madison's revealing text message. I painstakingly transcribed every single fraudulent charge from my online credit card statement, the massive initial payment to the cruise line, the onboard bar tabs, the opulent jewelry store purchase in St. Martin, the costly dolphin encounter excursion fee. I was constructing a formidable case, not merely for my own heart, but for the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. I contemplated their sheer arrogance, their supreme confidence in my supposed ignorance. They genuinely believed I was a relic from a bygone era, a woman who still balanced her checkbook with a pencil and would be utterly bewildered by the complexities of online banking. They had conveniently forgotten that I was the very person who had patiently taught Michael how to operate his first computer, that I had devoted the last decade of my teaching career to seamlessly integrating new technologies into my classroom. I was not a digital native, certainly, but I was far from a digital simpleton. And they, in their condescending ageism, had just committed a fatal miscalculation. My plan was simple, elegantly cruel, and it required only one crucial element: patience. They were, at this very moment, likely savoring piña coladas by the gleaming pool on the Lido deck, blissfully unaware, squandering my money without a single worry in the world. Their onboard account, I knew from the glossy cruise brochures I had so hopefully studied, was directly linked to my credit card. Every single beverage, every trinket, every extra scoop of premium ice cream was being added to a running tab that would be settled at the conclusion of the voyage, or perhaps in incremental charges throughout. If I were to cancel the card immediately, the chaos would indeed be instantaneous, but it would be contained. The ship's purser would politely inform them of the issue, and Michael, in a desperate frenzy, would likely contact me, perhaps even possess sufficient remaining funds on his own cards to barely manage. That was simply not enough. My revenge needed to be served not hot, but rather exquisitely chilled. It needed to strike at the precise moment of their maximum vulnerability, their maximum public exposure. I consulted the cruise itinerary I had meticulously bookmarked on my tablet weeks ago, the very one I had dreamed of sharing with them. I noted the sea days when they would be literally miles from any port, any external ATM, any hope of a wire transfer from a sympathetic friend. They would be trapped on a floating city, a luxurious prison of their own making, with no financial resources save for the card they had so brazenly stolen from me. I resolved to wait until the final 2 days of the cruise. By then, their onboard bill would have swelled to a truly magnificent, bloated figure. They would have thoroughly enjoyed the excursions, acquired numerous souvenirs, lived the high life to its absolute fullest, all at my expense. They would be relaxed, sun-drenched, their guard completely down, already dreading their impending return to mundane reality. That is when the meticulously planned trap would spring. I dedicated the next few days to quiet, precise preparation. I compiled an exhaustive list of all the fraudulent charges. I meticulously drafted a concise, simple script for my impending phone call to the credit card company. I even contacted my phone provider and arranged for a temporary block on Michael's number, just in case he attempted to contact me in a panicked state before I was fully prepared to converse with him. I desired complete, unassailable control over the precise timing of our next communication. There was a strange, potent sense of power emanating from my quiet, deliberate actions. I was no longer Eleanor Vance, the heartbroken mother, the callously discarded grandmother. I was a shrewd strategist, an architect of consequences. Each measured click of my mouse, each precise notation in my ledger, was a small, resolute act of reclamation. They had excluded me from their family cruise, but I was now, from my serene living room thousands of miles away, the unseen captain of their financial destiny. On Friday afternoon, knowing they were in the midst of a long sea day between their last port of call and their ultimate destination, the opportune moment had arrived. I brewed myself a fragrant cup of strong tea, settled into my favorite armchair, and with the unwavering calmness of a woman who has nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim, I picked up the telephone. I dialed the number printed boldly on the back of my credit card. "Thank you for calling Cardholder Services." A cheerfully automated voice responded. "This is David. How may I assist you today?" "Hello, David," I stated, my voice as smooth and as cool as polished steel. "My name is Eleanor Vance. I need to report a series of significant fraudulent charges on my account, and I need to have my card frozen immediately." The trap was meticulously set. The gears of my retribution were now irrevocably in motion. All that remained was to await the delicious, inevitable sound of their panic echoing across the vast, indifferent ocean. The exquisite beauty of my plan resided in its quiet, surgical precision. There was no need for shouting, no immediate, messy confrontation, just a simple, irreversible action taken thousands of miles away. After my calm, professional conversation with David at Cardholder Services, during which I meticulously detailed the fraudulent cruise booking and the subsequent onboard charges, an immediate freeze was placed on my account. A brand new card was being issued to me, but the old one, the one inextricably linked to my son's onboard sail and sign account, was now nothing more than a useless piece of plastic. I vividly imagined the scene unfolding on that opulent cruise ship, a drama playing out in which I was the unseen, all-powerful director. It likely commenced subtly. Perhaps Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, attempted to acquire a new designer handbag at one of the ship's high-end boutiques. She would have presented the clerk with her room card, their room card, linked directly to my credit card, with her usual air of casual entitlement. The clerk would have swiped it, smiled politely, then frowned. A second swipe. The polite, professional smile would falter. "I'm so terribly sorry, Mrs. Vance," the clerk would murmur, "but it appears this account has been declined." Tiffany's initial reaction would be utter disbelief, then mounting annoyance, followed by a searing flash of public embarrassment. Or perhaps it was Michael, attempting to order yet another round of expensive, brightly colored cocktails by the shimmering pool. The cheerful bartender would swipe his card and receive the same dreaded message. "Sorry, sir, there appears to be an issue with the payment method on file for your stateroom." The real panic, however, would have set in later that evening. The grand culmination of their trip was the formal captain's dinner, an event Tiffany would have been anticipating for weeks, a prime opportunity to showcase her finest gown and flaunt her sophisticated lifestyle. They would have taken their seats at their elegantly appointed table in the magnificent, multi-story dining room, surrounded by other impeccably dressed passengers. They would have ordered the succulent lobster, the tender filet mignon, the finest wine on the extensive menu. And at the conclusion of the meal, when their attentive waiter presented the bill for the wine, Michael would have confidently handed over his room card. I can picture the scene with such vivid clarity. The waiter returning, his expression subtly apologetic, leaning in to whisper, "Sir, my sincerest apologies, but the card for your on-board account has been frozen. There appears to be a significant hold placed by the issuing bank." The blood would have drained from Michael's face. He'd attempt to laugh it off, blame a computer glitch. He'd discreetly try his own debit card, only to belatedly recall he had barely any funds remaining after their extravagant port-of-call spending. Tiffany, observing the look of sheer dread on his face, would begin to truly comprehend. Her carefully curated evening of elegance would be crumbling humiliatingly around her. The ultimate indignity would come when the ship's purser, a man with a stern, non-nonsense demeanor, discreetly approached their table. He would explain, in low, professional tones, that not only was their card frozen, but their entire, massive onboard account for the countless bar tabs, the luxurious spa treatments, the casino losses, the souvenir shop purchases. Everything was now due immediately. And without a valid payment method, their room keys would be deactivated, their onboard privileges summarily revoked. They were, in essence, penniless castaways on a floating city of opulence. I could almost distinctly hear their frantic, hushed argument, Michael blaming Tiffany for her extravagant spending, Tiffany hissing at him for not having a backup plan, for relying solely on his old mother's money. They would be trapped. They were in the vast middle of the Atlantic, a full day's sail from their final port. There were no ATMs, no immediate means to receive a quick wire transfer from a sympathetic friend. They were utterly at the absolute mercy of the cruise line, their social standing, their very dignity stripped away in an instant. They would have been compelled to make a humiliating, groveling call to the purser's office, desperately begging for some form of arrangement, likely having to sign some legally binding promissory note against their future earnings, all under the watchful, judgmental eyes of the ship's unyielding staff. Every subsequent meal would be a tense negotiation, every desired drink a stark, humiliating reminder of their financial impotence. Their grand vacation, their triumphant escape from the mother they had so callously discarded, had been transformed into a gilded prison, a floating testament to their own insatiable greed and profound folly. Back in my quiet, serene living room, I leisurely sipped my tea. I had received a fraud alert email from my credit card company, confirming the freeze, detailing the recent decline charges at a luxury goods retailer and a Lido deck bar. A small, supremely satisfied smile touched my lips. I didn't require witnessing their panic. I could viscerally feel it, a delicious, profoundly satisfying tremor across the thousands of miles of ocean that now separated us. The final, crowning part of my plan was simply to await the inevitable, desperate phone call. Their ship would undoubtedly possess satellite phones, of course, available for emergencies at a ridiculously exorbitant per-minute rate. I was quite certain they were about to deem this an unequivocal emergency, and I was equally certain that the cost of that very phone call would be the absolute best money they had ever spent. Because it would be for the singular privilege of hearing my final, unyielding answer. The panic was their immediate problem. The profound peace was now entirely mine. The call materialized precisely as I knew it would, on Saturday morning, the last full day of their miserable, gilded imprisonment at sea. The caller ID on my phone displayed a long, strange number, unmistakably an international satellite connection. I allowed it to ring 3 deliberate times before answering, savoring the profound moment, picturing Michael's frantic, desperate energy on the other end, the per-minute charges racking up with every passing second of my deliberate calm. "Hello," I stated, my voice as placid as a summer lake. Thank God. It was Michael, his voice a frantic, high-pitched squeak of pure, unadulterated panic. "Mom, you simply have to help us. It's a total nightmare. Your credit card has been frozen. They've completely cut us off from everything. They're treating us like criminals. We can't even purchase a bottle of water. You have to call the bank. You have to tell them it's a mistake." "A mistake, Michael?" I calmly replied, my voice cool and perfectly even. "I don't believe there's been any mistake whatsoever. I was informed of a series of highly suspicious, unauthorized charges on my account, all originating from a cruise ship in the Caribbean. So, strictly following my bank's security protocols, I had the card frozen to prevent any further fraudulent activity." There was a stunned, agonizing silence on the other end of the line. I could distinctly hear Tiffany's shrill, panicked voice in the background. "What did she say? What did she say?" "Fraudulent," Michael finally stammered, his voice laced with utter disbelief. "Mom, that was us. That was the family cruise, the one we talked about." "Oh, that one," I retorted, my voice dripping with an icy sweetness. "The one you explicitly told me was postponed because it was too expensive? The one Tiffany felt would be too much for me to handle? The one you deliberately decided to take my beloved grandchildren on without me, using my credit card, the one meant for emergencies, to secretly fund the entire trip?" "Yes, Michael, that is the very definition of fraud." He began to bluster, then, falling back into the old, familiar pattern of excuses and justifications. "Mom, it was a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back. It was just easier to use your card for the points. You're taking this all the wrong way. You're utterly ruining our vacation." "No, Michael," I cut him off, my voice now as hard and unyielding as steel. "You ruined your own vacation the very moment you decided to lie to your mother and steal from her. You genuinely believed I was too old, too simple to notice. You profoundly underestimated me. And now," I added, savoring the profound finality of it, "you are experiencing the direct, undeniable consequences of your actions. You are a grown man of 46. You will have to figure this out for yourself." But how?" he wailed, his voice cracking with unbearable self-pity. "We have no money. We're completely stranded. What are we supposed to do?" "I don't know, Michael," I stated, and for the very first time, a genuine note of profound serenity entered my voice. "That sounds precisely like an emergency. I suggest you find a solution. You are always so exceptionally good at that." And with that, I calmly hung up the phone. The following week was, I can only imagine, a living hell of their own making. They were forced to make a humiliating, groveling call home to Tiffany's parents to procure money wired to the cruise line to settle their enormous, outstanding bill and book incredibly expensive, last-minute flights home. Their return was not a triumphant homecoming, but rather a shame-faced, utterly mortifying retreat. 2 weeks after their inglorious return, a different kind of phone call came. It was a man from the cruise line's corporate office, from their guest experience and security department. "Mrs. Vance," he began, his voice professional and gravely serious, "we've concluded our internal investigation into the fraudulent use of your credit card for the booking made by your son. We take elder financial abuse very seriously, and the pattern of behavior here was deeply concerning to us." He explained that after my detailed fraud report and their own purser's meticulous report on Michael and Tiffany's subsequent behavior, they had thoroughly reviewed the account. It is against our company's core values to have our services be the backdrop for such a painful family situation, he continued. We have, therefore, refunded the entirety of the cruise fare directly back to your account. And as a gesture of our profound apology for the distress this has undoubtedly caused you, and in sincere recognition of the dream you were so cruelly denied, we would like to offer you a complimentary 7-day cruise for 2 in one of our finest suites on any voyage of your choosing within the next 2 years. On us, of course. I was utterly stunned. Speechless. A full refund? A free luxury cruise? My meticulously planned payback had not only resulted in the deep, exquisite satisfaction of witnessing their absolute panic, but now this? The very company whose services they had so brazenly stolen to humiliate me was now offering me my long-cherished dream, entirely free of charge. The story concludes not with me in my quiet, solitary garden, but with me, several months later, sitting serenely on the private balcony of a magnificent stateroom, the real Caribbean sun warming my face. I gazed out at the shimmering turquoise water, a cup of fragrant tea in my hand. My original cruise brochures were spread out before me on the table. I had finally embarked on my trip, the one I had so desperately dreamed of, the one paid for not by my savings, not by my sacrifice, but by the direct, unavoidable consequences of my son's own profound greed and utter disrespect. And it was sweeter than any dessert they could ever serve on that ship.